everybody? Alright. Has anyone seen such a wonderful manifestation of democracy in action? Are we excited? We're going to take our state back. We're going to take our country back. That's why we're here. My name is Sachin Chheda. I have the distinct privilege of being the director of the Fair Elections Project, one of the groups that came together with citizens across the state and across the country to organize and launch this lawsuit. And we are now going to the Supreme Court, and we're going to win. We've got a great program tonight to send off our plaintiffs. I'll introduce our speakers as they come up here. I want to make a few acknowledgments of folks who are in the room. First and foremost, we had an original group of people led by State Representative Fred Kessler, who's going to be our speaker later today, that came together at the George Watts Tea Room. And it was just a group of citizens that said, we got to do something about how our democracy is broken and how our elections in Wisconsin are rigged and the maps are rigged. And as part of that group, when we decided to go forward, we could not have gone forward without the leadership and support of Linda Honnold and the Brico Fund, our very first funder. Thank you for your leadership, Linda. I also want to acknowledge some elected officials who've joined us today. We have the mayor of Glendale, Brian Kennedy, who's here. State Representative Christine Sinicki, who's here. Our former state representative here at Plymouth Church, and our distinct community leaders, former state representative Barb Notstein. Are there any other current elected officials? My eyes aren't that great, so did I miss anyone who's a current elected official? Okay, great. We also have some candidates for office, and it's important that we recognize that they're putting their names forward to be elected to public office. Running for the office of Milwaukee County Sheriff, Ernell Lucas is here. And running for the state Supreme Court to make our Wisconsin Supreme Court stronger is Tim Burns. Tim is here. Thanks so much for you for being here. Are there any other candidates for public office who are here? Okay, good. We've gotten almost everybody. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to hear from plaintiffs, we're going to hear from community leaders, we're going to hear from the organizations that move the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition forward, and we're going to energize ourselves for the fight ahead. On Tuesday, the Supreme Court will hear an argument. They will hear from the state of Wisconsin, from the state attorney general, that the decision to overturn the maps in Wisconsin should be thrown out. The decision to save our democracy should be thrown out. They want, the state of Wisconsin is fighting to say, let's keep rigging the maps. But we hope that the Supreme Court is going to stand up and stop them, and that's why we're here. Are you with us? Right? They're going to have the argument on Tuesday, and then many months may pass. And what we're going to continue to do is educate the public, educate our fellow citizens, educate our neighbors, and say whatever happens in the Supreme Court, we're going to keep fighting. What Fred and I and others would say is that when we started talking about gerrymandering, getting 5 people in a room together 4 years ago would have been hard to imagine. And we'd invite people into the meetings, and they'd say, okay, well, that sounds like something that you should work on, but it's not something that we have a lot of time and energy for, right? And now there's probably more than 100 people here. We've had thousands and thousands of people across the state stand up. We've had tens of thousands of people across the country stand up and say, we're done with map rigging. We know what it is. We're going to take our democracy back. And so in my book, we've already won. And we're going to keep it going. A group of citizens stood up. Nobody's paying them. Nobody's asking them to do this for any reason other than their desire to make Wisconsin great. We have 3 plaintiffs with us here today. We're going to hear from a couple of them. I'd like to welcome up here to the podium now one of the plaintiffs, one of the persons who's put their name on the line and who's spoken up all over the state and all over the country, Helen Harris. Come on, Helen.
And I am so honored to be a part of this case because it speaks to the heart of our democracy. It's about fairness in voting. and we have to have fairness in our election and voting process. I live on the far northwest side of Milwaukee, and what happened to me, I've always lived in a primarily Democratic neighborhood, my husband and I. We had access to our legislators. We would see them. Sometimes they would come to our community meetings. They had the same values as I did. They were working for the same things as I wanted. Health care for people, education, good schools, good jobs in the city of Milwaukee. And then, all of a sudden, my little neighborhood was snatched from our district and annexed to a strongly Republican district, and I lost my vote. No matter what happened, I just don't feel that I can influence my legislator and convince them of the things that are important to me. So when I was invited to come to George Watt's tea room and hear what was going on, I didn't know much about gerrymandering, didn't really understand what had happened. But that was the beginning. And I just want to thank everyone who's working so hard on this, all the attorneys and all of you, because we're going to Washington and we want to win. We hope that the Supreme Court of the United States of America will rule against partisan gerrymandering.
I don't think when we first talked to her that she realized that she'd be on the cover of these national publications and on TV all over the country, but she's done a great job. We appreciate it so much. I want to recognize that one more candidate has joined us. He's running against Jim Sensenbrenner for the 5th Congressional District. So much of what has come out of our work, we created the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. And much of what we've been focused on is not just supporting the case, but also engaging the public, and engaging the public in a conversation about how we can make our democracy better. No one has shown more leadership, I think, across the state than our next speaker. She's the lead organizer for Citizen Action of Wisconsin here in Milwaukee, and one of the key coordinators of the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. Please join us here, Anna DeBoy.
In Milwaukee. It's good to see so many of our members here, so many advocates for voting rights and fair maps here. When back in January of this year, when members started to come to me to say that they cared about this issue, I was like, why? I mean, like, it's understandable from a technical perspective, but why wouldn't we instead want to focus on fixing our broken immigration system, or working on mass incarceration, or the grotesque amount of evictions in Milwaukee, or ensuring that everyone has a living wage, or adequate funding for all of our public schools. There's so many issues that our communities are struggling with and that we need to address. And that's because gerrymandering impacts all the issues that we care about, right? When it comes down to it, democracy requires fair voting maps. It requires that every single voter has an equal say. And when that doesn't happen, people rise up, people get active, they get involved. So, while I want us to acknowledge the wonderful work that everyone on this stage has done, I also want to acknowledge the work that the people who helped organize this event, organize any event, have done. If you could please stand. These people have literally dedicated hours of their time to this. Folks in the front here have traveled from Green Bay just for this event. Because this the state have organized town halls, informational town halls, over 4 in the greater Milwaukee area, over 20 statewide, in La Crosse, in Green Bay, in Appleton, in Lincoln County, areas that are conservative, liberal, rural, urban, suburban. Wisconsinites care about this issue. And when we know that a certain political party has rigged the maps so that they can have an indiscriminate amount of power in our state government and nationally, we know that this is not democracy. This is not the will of the people. This is not the Wisconsin way. This is not the American way. So throughout the rest of this rally, I want you all to really show some energy and really appreciate the work that everyone here has done. I know that I certainly appreciate all of the work that members of our Fair Maps Coalition have done. Groups like the ACLU of Wisconsin, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, the Fair Elections Project, Grassroots North Shore Citizen Action, you name it. These groups are coming together because we know this issue matters. So thank you all, and democracy requires fair maps. Thank you.
I want to single out one other person from Citizen Action. I don't mean to diminish all of the tremendous work that folks from Citizen Action all over the state have been doing, but there are cooperatives that have been built. They're member-run. I'm a member. You pay a monthly sustaining contribution, and so instead of getting corporate support or foundation support, it's a cooperative of members who go out there and organize. That's what Anna organizes for. They have them in northwestern Wisconsin, north central Wisconsin, northeast Wisconsin, here in southeastern Wisconsin, but there's one person who's worked both with Citizen Action and OFA who's really gone above and beyond as a volunteer. She has come here from Green Bay, and that's Renee Gash. Renee, where are you? And there's someone else who made a drive, and I met her first out when we did a town hall out in La Crosse. Actually, it was in, what city was it? It was in Onalaska. See, I can't even remember, because Onalaska is a suburb of La Crosse. But she's from Holman, and she's worked with Organizing for America, which has been a phenomenal partner and champion in our coalition, and she's continued to show leadership around the state. Please welcome up here Amy Dunn.
From a small town called Holman on the beautiful Mississippi River, and we are here representing rural America. The push for fair maps at the beginning of this year, and at that time there were just 4 pioneering counties on board that had passed resolutions supporting nonpartisan redistricting or fair maps. And since that time, with the work of a lot of people around the state, that number has increased to 30 counties. That represents 56% of the population of Wisconsin. Also, in the last month, the Wisconsin Counties Association passed a resolution in support of fair maps, with 56 counties voting. Thank you for taking a stand for democracy. And we are behind you as you take fair maps to the Supreme Court of the United States. Yes.
This event would not have been possible without the tremendous leadership of Grassroots North Shore, and we're going to feed you afterwards. So when we're done with the rally, please go out either one of these doors and down the stairs and join us for dinner. Someone who's been a tremendous champion on this issue, working really hard. She's put up a great website with tons of resources. She's spoken all over this community on this issue, and she pretends that she's nervous, but we know that she's the leader that we need on this issue. Nancy Kaplan.
She really is nervous.
proud to stand with the other great organizations here this evening in support of the citizens who brought this case to the Supreme Court. And one of our oldest members, and I mean that kindly, because he's been a member for a long time, Jerry Wallace, please stand. To mark the plaintiffs, we salute. We're going to be there, all of us, with the plaintiffs in spirit on Tuesday when the case is argued. And of course, we're all going to await the decision eagerly. We believe the Whitford case is powerful and compelling. But even the most favorable decision from the Supreme Court will not suffice on its own to secure fair election maps beyond the next couple of elections. We still need new laws or even a constitutional amendment to ensure that we will never again find our democracy sabotaged from within, sabotaged by those who so covet power that they would undermine the ability of the people to use their votes to hold elected officials accountable. So, we're going to need every one of you in this room, plus all your friends and your relatives, and a few more people besides, to join the fight in Wisconsin, to support pending legislation right now to put Wisconsin's redistricting process in the hands of a nonpartisan body, to join the 12 other states that have already said no to partisan gerrymandering. And while you eat dinner downstairs, we've provided you with some postcards to send to the committee chairs who have bottled up the bills to ask them to hold hearings. We want a fair democracy.
Thank you so much, Nancy, and we are all looking forward to dinner. Anna mentioned a number of groups earlier, and I just want to make sure I go through the list of the 10 organizations that make up the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition. All of them are doing something, actually it's 11, I just remembered one. And so let me just list them in no particular order. One Wisconsin Institute, the League of Conservation Voters, Grassroots North Shore, the Fair Elections Project, the Center for Media and Democracy, Common Cause Wisconsin, Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, Organizing for America Wisconsin, Wisconsin Voices, the ACLU, the League of Women Voters, and of course Citizen Action Wisconsin. These are the groups that have come together to make our democracy stronger. Thank you so much to all of you. One person is really doing a lot to make sure that the basic education that people need to have on how our maps are rigged and what you can do about it is reaching every community that it needs to reach. And she's shown a tremendous amount of leadership. The organization has shown a tremendous amount of leadership. Please welcome Shante Nelson from Wisconsin Gerrymandering.
Again, I am Shante Nelson with Wisconsin Voices, and I am the program manager there at Wisconsin Voices. And I would like for all of us to give a great big round of applause to the plaintiffs who are within this case, because without your passion and without your companionship, we wouldn't have the momentum that we have. You have caused waves of unity this state has known in a very long time because of your leadership, so thank you. So fair voting maps, they're crucial to my community. They're crucial to all communities. Without fair voting maps, our voting voice would be restricted, our funding opportunities would be limited, and our voice would be silenced. Within communities of color, in this state, there has been little need to crack or pack districts, but there has been one way that we have locked communities of color into a place of being a person who, a community, I should say, who is damaged by gerrymandering. And that way has been prisons. We've sent people within communities of color to prison. Our sons, our daughters, our sisters, our brothers, they've been sent off to prison. And the more people who are sent off to prison from our communities, the more limited our voting rights, our funding, and our representation gets. Have you ever heard of prison population count? Who's heard of that? Many of us in this room, right? It's a form of gerrymandering. When currently incarcerated people or individuals are counted as living in the area that the prison is located and not in the area or the address in which their families live, that means that funding and representation for those individuals do not get to the communities of their family. It doesn't get to the communities that their family live in, work in, play in on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of times what happens is, in the next 10 years that after the census, after that line has been drawn, then literally what happens is funding goes to the community in which the prison remains for the next 8, 9, 10 years, and their families suffer in the meanwhile. So when we talk about fair democracy, we want democracy in the prison system. We want democracy across Wisconsin. We want democracy across this nation. So here's my example. If I come to you today and I offend any of you, if any of us offend anyone, and say in that place of us being the offender, we are convicted of that offense and sentenced to 5 years. If I'm sentenced today, October 1st, 2017, to 5 years, that would mean that my release date would be on or about October of 2022. But there's a census coming in 2020. And so when I'm released out in 2020, I'm going to be released back into my community that I offended you from. I'm not going to be released into that community where that prison lies. And that's not fair. That's not justice, and that's not democracy. And one more thing, I've always stated to myself, it's quite interesting, of all of the reports that we have, where there has been a mass release of incarcerated individuals, I yet have one instance that I can recover where individuals have been released from prison leading up to a census. Why? Because they need our count. We would go throughout this state, we would go throughout the nation if there's a need to educate people around fair democracy in Wisconsin. And here's my statement. We deserve to be counted where our families live. If there's going to be a push to lock up those who are within my community, who are within our communities, then I'm going to say, count us where you imprison us. Count us where you arrest us. We want fair democracy. We're going to get it in the prison systems of Wisconsin. We want fair democracy. Come on, say that with us. We want fair democracy. What do we want? Fair democracy. What do we want? Fair democracy. And when do we want it? Now. All right. Fair democracy in Wisconsin.
Thanks for this one, Dave. Fred Mary Lynn, you got to follow that. Let me offer a couple more acknowledgments. First of all, we really want to thank Pastor Andrew Warner and the congregation here at Plymouth Church for hosting us tonight. Coincidentally, I didn't pick the place, but I also attend church here, and the pastor's sitting about where I usually sit when I sit here, so I think he's sending me a signal that I should sit there more. I also want to really acknowledge the work of the legal team, all of whom are already in Washington preparing for the argument on Tuesday. The trial team was co-led by 2 Wisconsin lawyers, Peter Earle, who was an original member of our T-Room group, and Doug Poland of Rathje and Woodward, Professor Nicholas Stephanopoulos, who developed the efficiency gap Medrick is on the legal team, Michelle Orisi from Mayor Brown, Jessica Amundsen from Jenner and Block, and the awesome team at the Campaign Legal Center and the tremendous leadership they have provided, led by Ruth Greenwood, Jerry Hebert, Annabelle Harless, Danielle Lang, and of course the guy who's going to argue for us at the Supreme Court. Let's send him all of our love and all of our prayers, Paul Smith. Thank you to all of them. Hopefully you're watching on the live stream. We have another plaintiff who's been a tremendous leader in Wisconsin. She's Secretary of the State Bar of Wisconsin. She's the President of the Planned Parenthood Board. She just stepped down as chairperson of the City of Sheboygan City Council, and she has been another person who's spoken out over and over again in the media, on TV, in the newspaper. She was just the subject of an Associated Press video feature that is all over the world. We've been finding it on websites. And without her leadership, we wouldn't be where we are. Please come on up here. Mary Lynn Donovan.
Wow, are you a group or are you a group? I'm taking this energy to Washington, D.C. and then back to Sheboygan. Thank you so much for being here and for being supportive. I'm a retired lawyer. And I am going to be, I hope, on Tuesday in the Supreme Court courtroom in that kind of wonderful position of kind of having a good sense of what the legal issues are and being nervous for our cause and hoping we do well and not worrying about fainting when I get up to speak because I won't have to do that. So I am so thrilled and honored to be a part of this. And who knew? The George Watt Tea Room? Really? Really? And I was there once, and it took me a little while to find my way, but it was a wonderful group of people, and it has remained so. We're in a house of sacred, and as I look on this, for me, voting is my sacred. I'm just this person who is focused on my voice as a voter. Now, there was a front page picture, at least in the Sheboygan Press, and I think also the Journal Sentinel, of a big crowd at Lambeau Field pledging allegiance to the flag. I'd heard that shouts of USA, USA were going on and so forth. And that's perfectly fine. But what I want to say is, if patriotism to you is saying the Pledge of Allegiance or singing the Star-Spangled Banner and you don't vote, you're not patriotic. You don't believe in what makes this country great. I'm part of the League of Women Voters, a brand new Sheboygan chapter that came together. And we just did our first voter registration day. And I had at least a couple people walk by me and say, well, if you don't vote, you can't complain. And I said, you got it, Buster. And so I think that this case is supremely important. I am honored to be one of the people who signed the representation agreement. I've sat in the courtroom and watched our lawyers who are astonishingly good. And I will take your energy when I'm standing in line waiting to get in, the energy in this room, the noise, the enthusiasm, the strong belief in what patriotism really means with me, and my dear spouse who has kind of stood by me in all of this. And I will take that with me. It'll keep me warm. It'll make my legs, legs will be a little tired, but my spirit will be energized. And I thank all of you, not only for understanding how important this case is, but making that very clear, very strong connection between what the law can do and what the people can do. And together we can make it work. Thanks again. It's been a pleasure.
Mary Lynn Donovan, Jerry Wallace, Tom Harris, please stand again. These are the folks who are taking us to the Supreme Court. And here's what it's coming on. story. But after the 2012 election, we looked at the results. One party had gotten way more votes, won an astounding victory, had turned the state in just 2 years from one direction to the other. But that party, in Wisconsin, the Democratic Party, hadn't gotten the seats in the state assembly. And a lot of folks around the state were wringing their hands. What do we do about it? But there was one person who said, we're going to do something about it. We're not just going to wring our hands. And he gathered a small group of people, mostly lawyers and me, and he said, nobody's asking us to be here. Nobody's telling us to do this, but we've got to do something. And that group, which Fred Kessel organized, included James Hall and Peter Earle and me. It was joined over time by Bill Whitford, who became the lead plaintiff, Linda Honnell from Greca Fund. It took 2 years, more than 2 years. We filed a case, and it took another year and a half, and we got a decision from a federal court overturning the maps and saying, yes, our constitutional rights have been violated. And then another almost year has passed, and now we're finally going to the Supreme Court. And we sat at that breakfast table, and I ate a lot of quiche at Fred wanted to. It's not what I normally would eat, I suppose, but that's where Fred wanted me. And it became, it really has become a story unto itself. And it was a vision in one person's mind that led to all of this, that led to, from one-on-one conversations to 5 people to 10 people to now more than 100 people in this room saying, we're going to go out there and fight for democracy. And he's provided tremendous, tremendous leadership on this issue. I'm proud to call him my friend. Please come on up here, State Representative Fred Kessel.
Many of you asked, why did we go to Watts's Tea Room? Well, when my mother came from Germany in 1925, she worked as a waitress in Watts's Tea Room. And she told me that that's always the nicest restaurant in Milwaukee. And I believed her. And the other thing was, nobody comes there for breakfast except the 5 of us. I have to say, this has been an incredible experience. And I want to thank Sachin and Peter Earle and even Rick Sachs. Richard Sachs was one of the original attorneys, and he said, you guys don't have a chance. But he withdrew and took the case for the League of Women Voters on the Voting ID Act. So he didn't abandon us and not do anything. We had James Hall. Many of you know he was the president of the NAACP. And he's in Washington now. And we also ended up having the situation where we gathered all of us, and then we brought Peter Earle, who's also in Washington, D.C. right now, and many of us are going there tomorrow morning to attend the hearing and to celebrate. But I have to tell you, this was really an absolutely incredible experience because we had good people who worked on this. We went around and we said, can we bring a lawsuit like this? And we finally concluded we could, but we did a lot of legal research. We ended up saying, can we get the money to set a case like this together? And I have to tell you, James Hall, who was also the national vice president of the ACLU, and we brought in eventually a friend who worked in my first campaign in 1960, when I was 20 and was elected to the Assembly, back before most of you were born, we brought in Bill Whitford. And Bill also contacted a professor out in New York who suggested that we send him out all the material, and he sent us back an article. The article was written by two professors, one from the University of the California system and one from the University of Chicago, a guy named Nick Stephanopoulos. And we called Nick Stephanopoulos and invited him to join us in Watts' tea room. And he brought his then fiancée, she's now his wife, named Ruth Greenwood. And they came and joined us. And we had the fact situation that we could bring a lawsuit. And Nick Stephanopoulos brought us the magic bullet. He had the theory how we could win this lawsuit, because we knew that Justice Anthony Kennedy was very concerned about partisan redistricting, but Justice Kennedy said, I don't know how to measure it. And what Nick Stephanopoulos and his fellow professor prepared was a method of measuring how partisan redistricting can go, and it was called, based on the wasted votes, it was called the efficiency gap. Once we had that, we could then go and raise money to bring the lawsuit. And Ruth Greenwood, Nick's wife now, helped us raise money from a foundation in Chicago, the Joyce Foundation, and then the Brico Foundation, who Linda Honold worked for and helped us. We got money from the Brico Foundation so we could start this lawsuit. I have to tell you, this has been absolutely exciting. We have the best legal team that I have ever seen. And I watched them argue in the district court. And I was very discouraged at first, you know. We ended up filing a lawsuit. We filed it in the Western District of Wisconsin. We thought we would get a good chance of getting a good judge. We got Barbara Crabb. And then, to our surprise, the chief judge in the Seventh Circuit appointed two Republican appointees to be the other two judges on the three-judge panel. One of them was Mr. Griesbach, Judge Griesbach from Green Bay, and the other was a judge from a retired circuit judge who was a Reagan appointee. Judge Griesbach was a Bush appointee. And so we were very discouraged when we had two Republicans. But I have to say, Judge Ripple, the judge retired from Indiana, a circuit judge, wrote an incredible decision. He said that the Wisconsin redistricting was unconstitutional in its face because it denied a group of people, Democrats in Wisconsin, from ever having an opportunity for a whole decade to have a chance to win control of the legislature in Wisconsin. That was outrageous, and we knew that once that happened, we had a chance to win this case, and I think we are going to win this on this next week. But I want to tell you the work is not over, because normally what will happen is that the Supreme Court, when they do redistricting cases, they will remand it back to the legislature to draw a fair map. We don't think the Wisconsin legislature can draw a fair map. We are going to submit a fair map that will be as fair as could be possible under this situation, and we think that we will force them to either revise their map, or if they pass an unfair map, we will take it back to the court and say, this is an unfair map, redo it, and we will ask the court to impose its own map. And that's how we think we will ultimately win. But that requires your attention. That requires your contacting the legislators when they remand the case. That's going to require you to contact your Republican legislators from all over the state and say, you can't pass an unfair map. You did it once. You rigged the system once. You can't do it again. And we will go back to court. We will go back to court if they try it a second time. I promise you that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everything you've done. And stay with us because the battle's still beginning. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for your leadership. I'm going to leave you now with 3 thoughts, and I know that I'm the person between you and those sloppy Joes, so I'll go very quickly. There are fact sheets downstairs from the Fair Elections Project and from other organizations. One important thing that we have to remind folks is that in Wisconsin, the victims are the Democrats. The Republicans are the ones who rigged the map. But around the country, there are states in which Democrats have rigged the maps. And what we decided as a group is we were going to bring a case that wasn't just going to help one party, it was going to help disenfranchised people all over the country. So if you're a Democrat in Michigan or Wisconsin or Ohio or Pennsylvania, this case is going to help you. But if you're a Republican in Illinois or Massachusetts or Rhode Island or Maryland, you are going to be helped by this case. It is a bipartisan case, and we have bipartisan leadership. And Republicans and Democrats are standing together for our democracy. The other thing that I'll say is, and I said it before, we've already won. Because we're engaging people, and we're going to continue the work. Our coalition's going to continue the work, and we need you to be involved. We don't want you just to be an observer of this case. We want you to be a participant in your democracy. And yes, that means voting, but it also means advocating for your rights. It means standing up with the Wisconsin Fair Maps Coalition for independent redistricting, to make sure that we pass these county resolutions, donate to the causes that make a difference, help fund litigation here and in other states. This is the work that's going to make our democracy better. And so with that, thanks to all of you for being here. I'd ask you guys to stand up here for a moment so we can get a couple of pictures and then get some press interviews. And then we encourage everyone to go downstairs, enjoy a meal and some fellowship, and give us every prayer and good thought you can to be successful at the Supreme Court on Tuesday. Thank you.